We're just going to be like talking about seller financing. I'll ask you questions and then, we'll just have a conversation like we just had. It is recording, just so you know. It'll save to, I believe, both of our devices. It might not.
Okay.
I don't know how that works. This is my first time ever doing like one of these Zoom recordings.
Gotcha.
Okay. So
I'm happy to be a guinea pig.
Oh, yes. We'll add that to the description. Just FYI, guys, this is my guinea pig. They'll be like, oh, wow. No. Okay. So do you just want to introduce yourself and then just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So Mickayla, again, thank you for having me. My name is Hikmat Sabeh. I'm the only attorney at the law office of Hikmat A. Sabeh off of Bloomfield Ave in Montclair, New Jersey, specializing in corporate law with a niche in real estate and commercial transactions.
Nice. I love that. Okay. So on the basis of seller financing, as you know, we've actually personally done a deal together for seller financing.
Right.
What would you say are some pros and cons when it comes to seller financing on investment properties or single family, really anything?
Yeah, so I would say there are definitely several of pros, especially when it comes to an investment property. With seller financing, there are a lot less, hoops that the buyer has to jump through in order to obtain financing. So that makes everything quicker. I think it makes everything swifter for all the parties involved. Attorneys love it because there's a lot less paperwork for us to go through. The seller loves it because it's kind of like it's one less contingency that they have to worry about. So those are some two big pros that people appreciate in this type of transaction. As far as cons are involved, the only con that comes to mind really is if you have parties that don't have experience in the process, so they're not conducting the same due diligence that maybe a more formal lender would or a bank would when financing some of these transactions. And that's when you're going to run into trouble. And it's not just the seller that loses out. It's also the buyer, because they could actually lose the entire deal because the proper due diligence isn't being executed. So, but done right, there are definitely more pros than cons in a seller financing transaction.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely feel like, even personally working with you, I've seen that this deal has gone a lot smoother compared to some of my other deals with actual banks involved. And it's just, I prefer seller financing when it comes to owners having 100% equity, because it's really all
right.
The only times that you can do it,
Pretty much.
So,
Pretty much.
I mean, it's great though, because you open the doors up to, non-qualified people traditionally,
Right.
and it's just so perfect because, I don't know, I personally think it's awesome for sellers in very slow markets, like, but what would you say if you were going to be recommending seller financing? Like, what would you say the conditions would have to be for someone? The 100% equity, and then
Well, 100% equity. I mean, that's probably a requirement. I mean,
yeah,
it would be relatively complicated to do seller financing without it. But
maybe.
this I would say the only the biggest key behind that is the pre-qualification. So all realtors want their buyers to be pre-qualified before they go shopping for a house, right? So, or any type of property. From a seller's perspective, you kind of want to pre-qualify the buyer as well. You want to get to know who they are, and more than just what's on paper, right? I mean, anybody could just run some numbers in a system and say, okay, this is what this person is eligible for. But with these types of transactions, you want the seller to be a little more hands-on and kind of know who they're dealing with. And the earlier that's done, the easier it is for everyone to kind of address the hiccups that come with the with the transaction and the buyer's application, essentially. So that would allow for a very smooth transaction. Whereas with a big bank or a formal lender, you'll conduct all these applications. There's so much due diligence and it takes so much time to have it executed. But when you have a hands-on seller who's doing the financing, it's a much smoother process, and the due diligence is just carried out much better.
Oh yeah. No, I can't tell you even how many times personally I've been denied for financing, especially during the pandemic,
Yeah.
right? And I ended up going through private mortgages. It's kind of relatively the same thing in a way, except for the person giving the private mortgage doesn't have the actual property. And
Right.
when there's more private parties involved instead of these huge corporations, it's just like you said, the pre-qualifications are just so much easier to get around. It's like
Yeah.
need a credit check just so we can see, your worthiness of paying it back, as well as
Right.
a background check just to make sure, you're not gonna like try to kill us in our sleep.
True. Yeah.
So I mean, with banks, they're like, we want your arm, we want your leg, we want your
Right.
everything.
I
And
know.
it's
I
just
know.
absolutely ridiculous. But you specialize in seller financing as well, because
Right.
I mean, you knew exactly what to do. And I really loved that when I was speaking with you and I got you into the current transaction that we're in. Just, you're very swift. You understand what you're supposed to do. And I mean, I applaud you on that. So,
Well, it's good to have a realtor like yourself who kind of keeps everybody in check, because that's lawyers rely on the realtor to do that, to just
yeah.
kind of crack the whip every now and then and make sure deadlines are met from both sides. And it's important because when you're conducting seller financing, you're the seller and you're the lender. So you have to make sure that you're checking off your boxes for both of those roles. So it's good to have an attorney that's on top of things, but I think more importantly, it's good to have a great realtor who's able to kind of keep everyone organized.
Oh
So
yeah. It also helps when you have really crazy buyers, but we won't go into that.
we have, I'm sure you get a lot of those in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I've had buyers sometimes they end up trying to expand the closing time for like months, something similar to, you know, but
Oh boy, that's the
it
worst.
happens. And it's so helpful when everybody is like together and on the same path. So I
Right.
enjoy having that clear line of communication with you. Like whenever I ask you a question, you're very like respectful of your own fiduciary duties, but you're also very to the point with me and a retrospective that's appropriate. So I don't have to
Yeah,
worry about, you not having a client's back. Like you have the client's back, but you're also
of
not
course.
gonna be like leaving me in the dark, which is
Right, right, of course. Yeah,
it's very hard
realtors
to
hate that.
find.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. So I know that you wanted to offer a maybe special that you could do maybe for
Yeah.
anybody that's interested in talking to a professional attorney.
Absolutely. So, I mean, in addition to our standard free consultation that we give people off Facebook, Avo, Yelp, and Google and things like that, when it comes to seller financing, we're also conducting a free due diligence checklist, and it's not just some template that we downloaded off Google. I'm going to have a one-on-one, with the potential client, go over their needs, understand their transaction, and I'm going to create a due diligence checklist for them, and for that particular transaction. There's absolutely no charge for it. There's no obligation to use my services. You want to make sure that you pick the right attorney because it's a very involved process. So you want to make sure you're with someone you could trust. And that checklist, it's going to be very, very helpful, especially in a market where not a lot of people have seller financing experience. So we're going to give that to you for free. Keep it in your back pocket, and hopefully, if you need us, we're there to help.
And I think that we're referencing New Jersey in a way, just because
Yeah,
New Jersey is a little bit like, what? Seller financing? That must be a scam. But no, it's
yeah,
real, people. It's real. It's encouraged.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's
and I
encouraged.
just think that the
If you
big
have
banks
that
have.
equity. What?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the equity, take advantage of it. I mean, it's really win-win for everybody.
Oh
And
yeah.
you don't want the big banks to constantly take control of your transaction. It's not their transaction, it's yours. Whether you're the seller or the buyer, you want some control over this. And when the banks come in, they come,
Oh,
pounding away, do this, do that, but that's really not how it should be. So
no, yeah.
definitely take advantage of it. If you have the equity and you have the resources, definitely take advantage of seller financing.
No, 100% agree. Well, thank you for
No,
joining
thank
me.
you.
You are my first guinea pig ever. That's our reference.
I'm proud to wear that badge of honor.
Oh, please, we're gonna come up with a better badge name because I don't like guinea pig. But okay. Well, thank you so much. And I mean, for anyone that is watching this after we record, so definitely take him on his offer and just reach out to us if you need any information on seller financing. I'm in Florida, New Jersey. Hikmat's in New Jersey and maybe expanding to Florida, maybe.
Maybe Florida, yeah. Let's keep talking,
Maybe.
Mickayla, and hopefully we can make that happen.
Yes, of course. Okay. Well, thank you. And I look forward to conducting some more business with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. Bye.
All right. Take care.